Podcast. Tonight, once again, we are with special guest league owners and league racers. Represented tonight by PTM Racing is the Poddle Sparkalicious. And representing Challenger Racing League is Dirt GBX, as well as another league that is joining us tonight, Ruthless Racing, run by Trav1851. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Appreciate you having us, man.
Yep, thanks for having me.
So last time we were on the podcast, we had a very big, frank discussion about the struggles, the hardship and the reality of racing leagues. Because again, there's a lot of people out there that they don't understand the morality as well as the hardships of league racing and what it can do to our mental capacities as well as our personal lives. But for those that are able to, to get past all that and be able to perform such a great league, it is truly a most wonderful and inspiring thing, to say the least.
Oh, yes, sir, man. It's a blast, too. It gives you something to do, especially right now with all that's going on in the world and the quarantines that we all having to deal with, man. To just kind of forget about it and just link up with your buddies, man, and go racing. It's a blast, but then again, if you do it too much right now, it also causes issues, man. It's like this stuff can cause wars between best friends.
Indeed it can, and so, speaking of wars and stuff, obviously when we're racing, leagues have a very distinctive manner on how they want to be presented and how they want drivers to be representing the league. So, I got to ask you guys here, since you know this better than I do, what is it you look for in drivers to strive for on the track and off the track?
When it came to Challenger Racing League, Duds and I were kind of not necessarily picky, but we were very selective when it came to our process of recruiting drivers. We would find guys through public lobbies or online forums, and we'd have them run multiple test races, basically, before they were accepted into the league. And we weren't looking for speed. We weren't looking for intimate track knowledge or, mechanical knowledge. What we were looking for was people who were not antagonistic, first of all, and people who were able to accept blame for things that happened on the track. If you got into me and you said that was completely on me, I knew that there was a good driver underneath, and that was the thing that I was looking for, because so many times you get these guys, the leagues are a competitive environment, and you got these guys that they got to prove themselves. They think they got to be better than everybody else, and they can't accept blame for anything that happens, and that toxicity spreads throughout the league and causes huge issues.
Almost definitely, man.
That's really true what you're saying, because I won't say no names, but it was only there lately we had a driver come in and he couldn't take blame for what he did. And I told him, if you can't take blame for what you did, this league is not for you. You need to man up, just say what you did. You only went down a little bit too much. All you had to say was that, but no, he didn't want to take blame, but after a while he just gave it up. But yeah, looking for people that is willing to take blame. Man up and say, they done a mistake, my bad. And for us in PTM, we used to do tryouts, but we give it up because I've been around so long now, I know who's who. And every now and then we'll take a new person in that we don't have a clue who it is, and we'll just let them run for the first 2 to 3 races in our league. And if they're no good, we'll just tell them thanks for joining and running with us, and we'll let them go.
All right, over at Ruthless, man, we if somebody vouches for you, we let you come on in. We give everybody a shot. We like people that's there to help each other. We're more of a family than anything over there. We look out for each other setup wise, because we're a custom setup league. So if somebody comes in and they need help building setups, we got myself and 2 or 3 other guys, JD and Manry, Mason, guys that help send setups out and, help you do anything that you need to do to better yourself on the game. You get some guys that's real stingy, don't want to help and scared that they're going to get beat. The way we feel is if you could beat us with our setup, you just outdrove us that night. So as long as you're, like they said, as long as you're willing to own up to your mistakes, and cut some slack, and you ain't trying to win it on the first lap, man. It's all about just building friendships and bonds, man.
100%.
Yeah, and try to stay away from hotheads.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
There's too many of out there, it seems like.
Yeah, a lot of hotheads out there, but you're exactly right about building friendships and trying to help each other out. I mean, I can think of, I've been a part of 3 or 4 leagues, and it is incredible. There are a lot of hotheads out there, but there's a lot of really great people out there too. I mean, I can think of 2 people in all of the leagues I've been in that intentionally withheld information or tried to trick people on fuel strategy and just kind of get their underhanded tactics through there. And one of them had a good reason. It was because they hadn't won in a while, and they wanted to get that upper hand, and I can understand that. But for the most part, man, most of these people in these leagues, I've noticed a lot of friendliness just in the short time that I've been in PTM. Reminds me a lot of what we had back in Challenger, and that's definitely what you want.
Yeah, you don't want to go somewhere where you don't feel welcome, and especially like I can remember when I first come into racing online. Like, I'm older, and I'll be 35 this year, so like I never raced online in my life until I joined what is Ruthless now, but it used to be KB before I took over. But like I've been in other leagues, and you just feel completely unwelcome. You feel like you're out of place. You don't want to talk, and you feel like if you get into somebody, you're going to get yelled at or chewed out or cussed or. So me personally, I like when I join a new league, I stay real quiet and I don't ask nobody for nothing until I get used to it. But that's one thing that I do. Like, as soon as we got a new guy to come in our league, that's the first thing we all do is tell them, man, don't hesitate. If you need help with something, don't hesitate, man. Even if it's outside the game, if it's like in your personal life, you just need to vent or talk to somebody, man. We got guys, we're there for that too.
Yeah, that's great. That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it really, really matters is the atmosphere. I think that's the key name is the atmosphere of the league. And that's something I've been part of leagues that the atmosphere, like you said, was kind of, very toxic, or even to a point where like you said earlier about, people not talking to you or not helping you out or whatnot. I've been part of that. And then I've been a part of other leagues where the atmosphere was just like you were going from like a black and white television to color. It was just like, bam, what is this new world I am? Because this is awesome. So I just think it just has to deal with the atmosphere and the mutual respect for each other on how a league succeeds.
Oh, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely there definitely is a goal to strive for any driver really to try to win, but it really, I think a true driver or racer, if you will, on the track is those that are able to display respect to other drivers, race their race and not necessarily trying to take someone out and just call that a win, because really what's the satisfaction in just taking somebody out and calling that a win? Like, where's the reasoning to it?
Right. There's sometimes, like last night, for example, we had a race, and man, I was really expecting a guy to move me going in to the final corner, man. But we've been friends so long. He was like, man, I didn't want to move you. I'd rather push you to the win. And you just build those type of relationships with people too. And once you do, man, it makes it really freaking fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in PTM, I don't think we ever had one race where, well, we did since the new guy came in, but it was not big. But I don't think we had one race where someone got moved for a win.
That's awesome.
They all race it out side by side as clean as they can.
Yeah, it makes it more fun too, man. When you're behind the controller or a steering wheel, whatever you may be, and you're door to door with somebody coming off four, coming to the checker, then they're not going to rough you up. That it's all about horsepower then.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like, it's just, you can race with a clear mind when you know you're in that situation.
Yep. Well, guys, also just a little heads up. You might have seen a little bit of a black screen right there. We have a new guest joining with us right now, Robbie Bobby. Glad to have you on with us as well, representing PTM. So, since we got him in mind now, and we brought him in with us, guys, I got another thing for you here. And obviously, we want drivers that strive for greatness and stuff. But what about those that aren't exactly great, and they are a little too aggressive, and they're told they got to lose points? What is the struggles of dealing with a driver that is told they have to lose points because of just bad or overly aggressive driving?
Now, in my experience, and I've only had to deal with this with probably 2 or 3 drivers, but what I've found is the most common response to criticism when it comes to driving is a lot of people take it very personally. And they think when you say, hey man, you got to watch your line, you got to call out where you're at, they think that you're attacking them personally. And that's a shame, because I personally love to help people get as good as they can. I mean, I've had friends where, they want to know, how do I run this track? And I'll sit there and I'll run laps with them at that track for 2-3 hours straight, and I'll tell them, here's what you got to do. Here's how you enter the corner. Here's your throttle point. And by the end of that session, they're a lot better off than when they went in. But there are certain people who don't want to accept that help. And I can understand why some people would be offended by saying, hey man, you're causing a lot of problems out there. We need to talk about this. But if they do open up, if they're willing to accept that, it's just way better for the environment of the league as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually something that, in the Ruthless, that we actually haven't had to deal with. Like, we've had a race or two when we've had somebody, maybe have a little too much to drink before the race starts and a little reckless. But
a few beers here or there is not too bad, right?
Right. Well, we've never had a situation where we've just had to penalize somebody since I took over. Now, before I took over, we had we had it occur with our previous owner. And he had actually put a points deduction system in place, so we all knew ahead of time, if you cause this or you do that going into the race, then you're going to lose points. So there was no, when he done it, there's a few people that were fussed in private, but to a co-owner or a committee member, but there's never nothing. We never really had an issue like drama-wise in the chat or on Discord or anything like that with the penalties. But I do understand that some leagues do have that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with PTM, ever since I owned it since 2016, we came across some nasty people over just being docked points for maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 points. I'm after having ones where they accept it and they say sorry. I'll be a lot more careful next time. And I had some where they went and got people after me, like, it just went crazy, like, over a few points in a game. So it got its struggles, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. Thanks for having me on, guys. And when approaching those drivers, from the sprint car side, the league that I run, it's been the same story. They want to know why, and if they aren't happy with the reason why, it gets dragged out and they'll take it personally. And I've run into a few that they would like to threaten to quit the league sometimes, and if it comes down to that, well, then you're just not in it for the racing. But then you also have the individuals that will take it on the head and try to improve their racing by the next week. So it just kind of varies on that individual's character on how they react to it.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm after having drivers say, I'm going to quit the league. At the end of it, now I'm just like, okay, go ahead. You can't bend over backwards for someone because they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, if you just keep, allowing the behavior to continue, they're just going to continue to be there and be basically a nuisance at that point. So it is, at the point where you just say, okay, that's enough. We gotta part ways and keep moving forward at that point.
Well, we just had a driver leave because I had 2 people come to me with messages from him that he meant to take them out. All right, that's intentional wrecking. So we let know he got to go. He's always been a problem every race for this season and our season. We're 4 races in, so every 4 races in 2 series, it's always him being brought up. So we were professional. We let him know he got to go. We don't put up with that kind of stuff, and boom, he went haywire on us like crazy.
I can only
Talking
imagine
back
what that
on the
must have been
subject
like.
about guys that threaten to quit, I've learned at my little short time of being a league owner that if you tell them that you're fine with them quitting and letting them walk away, 90% of the time they're going to just stay.
Yep.
Like they want to threaten to quit because they want you to beg them to stay or something.
Yeah.
It's like we're all grown. If you want to leave, leave, buddy.
And I'll say at the beginning, I used to beg them to stay because I didn't want to lose a driver. But now it's like, okay, you want to go, go. It's fun.
There's a lot more hard deserving drivers out there that deserve to give a chance in these leagues that actually try to run good and try to run clean. And when they're given that chance, it should feel more like an opportunity to really show their skills and show that, hey, I do belong here, rather than trying to play like, oh, I own this or I own that. It's like, no, man, you got to learn to just go with the flow and realize that there are things out there you can't control. And there's no such thing as the world's greatest driver. Every driver is good on certain tracks and certain ideas, and that's just the way life works.
Yep.
Right.
So, like, I guess that kind of leads into another thing too. Is like, what would be like a big pet peeve that you as running a league have to deal with a lot that you just see out of drivers, or you have to deal with in general with the league?
Real quick, it's good you said that, because my biggest pet peeve, and this is kind of similar on topic to the last question there, my biggest pet peeve is people who think because they're winning races, because they're fast, that gives them the right to drive however they want to drive.
They'll rough you up.
Exactly. They think, well, I'm faster than you, so get out of the way. Back in Challenger, we had one guy, and I'm not going to name any names, but he was real fast. I'm not going to take it away from him. He was good at the game. This was back in Heat 3. And every week, it was me, him, and another guy in the league that was battling for the win. Me and the other guy would always race as clean as we could, but this guy, he would put the bumper to you as soon as he got to you. He had no patience. He would dive down onto the apron, come up, put you in the wall, and every time you would address it to him and say, hey, you need to work on this, he would get all defensive and say, well, I won the race, didn't I? If you were faster, I wouldn't be able to get to your bumper, yada, yada, yada. And that guy was such a problem throughout the whole season, and this is back when we were doing, 3-4 month-long seasons, that at the end of the season, I had won the Cup Championship, he had won the Xfinity Championship, and we had to boot him from the league after he won the Xfinity Championship, because I think of the 20 or so drivers we had, 18 of them had come to the 3 admins at various points saying, hey, what is this guy doing? But he just had this mindset, I'm fast, so I get to do whatever I want. And I see at least one person like that in every league. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's when we normally get a driver to come in and they're all about themselves and they think they're the best on the game and all that. I know right then and there they're not going to work out.
Right.
To me, my biggest pet peeve is dealing with somebody who wants to try to take over, who is supposed to be a driver, but they want to stick their nose in it. They want to, well, this guy needs to be penalized, or can we move the race back to this time, or somebody just tries to come in and take over. Like that absolutely kills me.
Yeah, that I've been feeling like we have a league on Wreckfest. I'm starting to get the feeling with one of our drivers, like he wants to take over. He thinks just because he said it, we got to do it. Like, this is not your league. You got no say in that. I don't mind taking ideas, but you don't get the final say.
Right? And like during every off season, I get with all my guys and we ask them, what do you think we should change? Whether it be the length of the race, manual or game cautions, and that's for the off-season stuff, Deal with that in the off-season, and we'll take those suggestions into consideration. But in the middle of the season, and you're not a committee member, don't try to take over.
Yeah.
Like, just show up and run your race.
Yeah, that is one of my pet peeves, and probably drivers that don't appreciate all the work you do.
Oh yeah, that
Like
kills
some
me too.
drivers you'll have come in, they think, "Oh, this is easy. I can do a league too," and then they think, "Maybe I'm going to take your drivers too, and then I don't have to really put my work into it. They just got to go and run a league." But I think if they went and ran the league, they wouldn't get nowhere with it.
Mm-hmm.
No,
They don't
that's when
think
you
about-
tell.
Like when the season's over, you got to make a new season. You got to make sure all the rules are done right, all the points are done right. Are you going to change anything from last season to this season? You got to do a schedule up, and you got to make sure you got the right drivers in there to run the next season.
Right.
It's not as easy as people think.
Mm-mm.
On
Gotta
the
worry. Constantly recruiting too, man.
Yeah,
Constantly.
and that's very hard. And when you got one driver in your league and they're driving off like maybe 4 and 5 drivers, then you got to rethink. Okay, this guy got to go because he's really taking away the drivers, and so you can bring back the other ones.
Right.
On the opposite end of the spectrum of that, another pet peeve of mine is drivers that don't communicate. Because back in Challenger, we had a couple drivers that just stopped showing up one week. Okay, they miss a couple races. Fair enough. They miss 3 races in a row. Suddenly, I got to PM them and say, "Hey, what's up? You just not feeling it anymore?" And then only when I probe and ask them, they'll say, "Oh, well, I have a problem with this driver," or "I don't really like this rule." And I don't necessarily want people to tell me how to run the league, but if something's bothering, if something is eating at somebody so bad they just stop showing up, let me know. Say, "Hey, I'm not feeling it. This is why." And then in the future, that league can improve, and then maybe it will be an environment that you want to be a part of.
Right.
Yeah.
That or you
Yeah,
got guys
after,
that don't show up and get mad when you give their number away.
Yeah.
After 3 races, we at PTM pretty much get rid of you.
Right.
If you don't make 3 races, okay, then obviously we're only a 10-race season. So if you can't make 3 of them, then like 3 races in a row now, not just like 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
But 3 races in a row, if you can't make them, then obviously you don't have time to run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's a crazy world out there with everything and different mindsets, different opinions, and everything we go through on a day-to-day basis. And it seems like a lot of people don't understand that the smallest thing can trigger anyone and everything, and that it can cause a pet peeve. It can make a driver that you thought was doing really good just all of a sudden turn into a complete maniac and not learn how to drive better, or just getting worse and being way too aggressive at people. It definitely is an unfortunate truth that, hearing from you guys and all the stuff you got to deal with from the leagues and stuff that, should be commemorated and respected for that matter. But I think before we get this podcast over and done with tonight, I think we need to do some on a happier note, kind of the whole reason why we do these league races and all that. And that is one question that we've always been asked, and that really a lot of people in leagues want to know is, what is the most memorable race or season, and what was it that made it memorable?
Mine had to be... Oh, jeez, I had so many seasons, it's hard to know. But last season was really good for us, I find. Even though I had a bad season, overall races wasn't bad. We have 3 series. We run Sunday, Monday, and Tuesdays. Out of all 3 of them, you could count on 2 hands for the whole seasons. Out of all 3 of them, how many cautions we had. Like, it was barely any cautions. There was all green flag races over and over each week. It was really good, and maybe the season before that, I actually finally started winning. I won a championship, which was something I'll never forget. I own my league since 2016. I never won a championship until 2019, so
it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
To me, my most memorable race, the funnest race I've ever had in my life, was actually not in my league, but in a guy y'all had on a couple days ago, Coop, Big Blue Coop. I run in his White Lightning League, and we was at Michigan last night. We had 1 caution the whole race, but we was 4 wide coming off of turn 2, and we stayed 4 wide all the way down the backstretch, all the way into 3, and never touched. Coming out of 4, it's like you'd think we scripted, because 2 of us just backed out and the other 2 just kept going, and then all 4 of us would just change positions for like 4 laps in a row, man. It's just racing like that. That makes you. It's like the reason why you do this. You're out there having fun. You ain't worrying about the stress. And me personally, I run in a different league almost every night in the week. I'm in like 4 different leagues, and every one of them's amazing. Shout out Elite, White Lightning, WFO, P1. Like, there's amazing leagues that I run in, and they're all like a family to me. Like, I personally don't have much family. I got 3 kids and a wife, and all the rest of my family's gone. And these guys have become my family. So, like, if it wasn't for the NASCAR and the leagues and the friends and family I've made over the game, like, I don't know where I'd be. Like, this game has literally saved my life.
Yeah, it definitely takes you away from all the stress and stuff goes on in life. You get on for an hour or 2, maybe 3, and you just play.
Well, absolutely.
And in that moment,
I
you're...
remember a race that I'll never forget, actually. I forgot about it. I just remembered when you were just talking about it. It was a championship race. It was between me and a driver we had in Arcon. We were racing for a championship, and my tires were worn, and we were running at ISM for the championship, and we kept going, and I noticed he got up close to me, and it was coming down to 1 lap to go. I drove into the turn so hard, I just used the wall up to try to get me, and we crossed the line, and we had to wait for the game to finish and load up to show who won that race, to know who had the championship. We were that close. It was crazy.
That is wild.
Wow.
One of my most memorable races would have to be in the Challenger League at ISM Phoenix, sort of like your race there. It wasn't the finale; it was just a mid-season race. But going into it, I was definitely one of the most inconsistent drivers. I could turn fast laps occasionally, but I didn't know what I was doing to turn those laps. And so there were 2 guys that were very fast there, and they were confident that they were going to finish 1-2. It wasn't even a question that they were going to finish 1-2. A buddy of mine got me in a practice session, and he taught me the ins and outs of that track like no other. And he got me right. He got me set up. I had the speed, and all race long, it was a battle of strategy because we were turning almost identical laps, the top 3, trading the lead, going back and forth. Eventually, one of them decided that they were going to try a long-run strategy and just try to save their tires as long as they could and stay out longer than anybody else. And with about 2 laps to go, his car was so slow due to the tires that I had caught up from half a lap down and got around him and got a late race win. And my buddy actually that taught me about that track, he still gives me crap saying, I shouldn't have taught you how to run that track, dude. I was supposed to win that thing. It was a lot of fun. It was one of the few strategy races I've seen in the Heat series, because you don't always get that,
Mm-hmm.
I would say my most memorable season, and it's funny because I haven't been in PTM that long. I just started basically last season, and I remember my first ever league win back at Kansas. It was the first Kansas race that we ran, and if you put Vegas odds on me, there was no way I was going to win that race. I wasn't really that fast. I've been kind of flirting around the top 10 most of the day, just biding my time. But I pulled the old fuel strategy card out kind of unexpectedly, and unexpectedly got that first win, and that had been my first win in an online league race since 2004, back when I was sim racing. So that was a long, long, long time ago. So it was fitting to get that, and it kind of gave me a little bit more confidence on going forward with the league. Because at the time I hadn't won any of the other leagues I was in, and something crazy would happen. Either I'd run out of fuel, blow a tire, get wrecked, lag out, some kind of stupid thing would happen that would prevent me from winning a race. And finally getting that win at Kansas and PTM, that was just just the icing on the cake, and that gave me the confidence to keep going, especially with some personal issues I ended up dealing with later in the season. That almost got to the point where I almost was going to leave. I was just going to leave everything. And then there was that race at Bristol, and I won that race at Bristol in the Xfinity Series, and that kind of brought me back to life a little bit. So last season was definitely kind of like a reawakening of my NASCAR career, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be my most memorable race, was probably the first one at Kansas that I won, because it's been so long and it's been such a struggle, and finally just to get that monkey off my back was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was really neat how we found you, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Actually, if I can elaborate on that, how I found PTM and Pottles was I entered into a public lobby with her at Canadian Tire. And they were running Canadian Tire, but it didn't seem like they were running very seriously, because I was starting to see cars go to there's that one really tight chicane turn up there that you really have to slow down for, and there's like that green hill up there, and all of a sudden I just see these cars just go flying, jumping up the hill. I'm like, what the heck's going on? Well, then I got in that turn, and I kind of messed up the turn because I was so distracted by all these General Lee cars flying over my head. And what do you know, there's Pottles right there in front of me, and I accidentally just slammed into her on the side, and I didn't mean to. I got loose off the turn. I was like, oh, crud. Oh, man. I said I got to message her after the race and just tell her I was sorry about that, because I almost wiped her out. So I messaged her back and said, I was sorry about that. And then next thing led to another. She was like, hey, would you like to join our league? I'm like, well, okay, all right, sure. I guess if I run into somebody, I guess I get an invite to a league now. All right. So that's how that all started.
That's cool though, man. That, just the stuff happened like that, and you still got the invite, and she let you come in. Like, I've heard a lot about Pottles, man. I got mad respect for you, and I salute you, man, for all the stuff you do here.
Yeah, we get in public lobbies and we don't take it serious. Like, you wreck, we wreck, but who gives a shit? Like, go out and use someone up in the turn. It's just for fun, right?
Right. Yeah. Especially public lobbies, if you don't do them like that.
Yeah.
Public lobbies do you like that, so you might as well do it first.
Yeah. So I guess, go ahead.
I mean, normally it gets kind of crazy going into public lobbies, because you'll see like one or two people just intentionally wreck the field or something. But when you see like more than that, when you see like 5 or 6 people just hitting the ramp and just flying, I say, well, you know what? That's pretty fun. Maybe I'll try that sometime.
Right. Then you find those lobbies, all of a sudden, like everyone and their mother is doing it. It's like, okay. Well, now it's really
right,
Wreckfest. It's survival to the end. I guess I'll go, since we're all talking about memorable races and seasons. I'll talk about mine real quick. So I didn't start with PTM until about a year and a half ago, and at first I legitimately sucked. I couldn't figure everything out. I wanted to stay in the back and just watch these guys and how they run. And slowly but surely I was getting faster over time, and I finally started a full-time season. So get into the season, and I wasn't doing too well to start. I actually had a good run at trucks. I was decent in a cup, and I had a decent go-around in Xfinity for the first part. But then right as we were getting into trucks, I think it was around past the halfway mark, we ran a road course. I think it was Canadian Tire we ran that time. And everyone was struggling a little bit, and I was actually getting kind of a feel for the road course more than they were, and I ended up actually getting quite a few points out to where I got my first top 5. And after that, all of a sudden I was getting top 5 after top 5 finish for the last 2 or 3 races leading into ISM, and I had a kind of a rough going from Xfinity, because the race Sparkalicious was actually talking about at Bristol, he actually beat me and a few other top drivers that day, and I was absolutely dominating Bristol, but I made so many rookie mistakes, and it cost me there, and it ended up going pretty much down to 4th place for that finish that day. And then I had a terrible accident in Talladega where I caused a big one, and that cost me my complete race there, because I led most of that too, and I was just wanting to get that first win off my back, and I just kept thinking, man, what do I do? And in Truck Series, I realized, I'm pretty close to getting into the playoffs picture. So we go into ISM, and I was, for the last 3 or 4 days, I think, I was just doing nothing but practicing on what we had to run and what we had to do. And I got down to where I wouldn't burn my tires up for the full run until literally the last 2 laps where I would just hit it harder and finally get it to go. We get into ISM, and right on our final stage, everyone's already ahead of us, giving us a run. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to see there's 3 laps left. Everyone's starting to either go to the pits or they're spinning out because they burnt their tires up too much. And I'm looking at mine like, I might have a chance here. I can actually, as long as I stay ahead of the guy I'm trying to beat right now, I can actually get into the playoffs picture and have a run at it. Next thing I know, literally the guy in front of me who was in first spun out, and I didn't realize I was in first going down the back straightaway, going into turn 3, and I looked up and I'm like, oh my god, I'm in first place, what's going on? So then I got a truck right beside me coming around that was a lap down. I'm thinking he's in the lead, and I just hit the gas pedal so far down, I was literally putting the pedal to the metal, and I went straight into turn 3, and all of a sudden my right rear just went bye-bye, and I came into turn 4, I went right into the wall. I got a few hits as the lap cars were coming around, and somehow, some way, I got this flat tire truck all messed up and banged up, got it across the finish line. I didn't even realize I won until literally the screen and the music played, and I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? That was probably the wildest, most memorable finish I've ever had in my life, and it got that monkey off my back leading into the championship race, which I actually finished second place, which was, in my opinion, I don't think I'll ever forget that season, nor will I ever forget that race, and just the emotions, the feelings, everything I had that night. It was just too good to be true, I thought.
Yeah, it's crazy when you're running up in front and you're in first and you're not used to winning. It's crazy how much your heart races on a video game, and your hands are sweating, and you're shaking, and you're like, right there with like 5 to go, and you're waiting to cross that finish line in first. It's crazy.
It's almost like you forget how to drive for a minute.
It really is. Like, yeah.
And you're like, I've been through this turn 80 times this race. Now all of a sudden I can't remember how I'm supposed to go through here, you know?
In all honesty, I should just not looked up and seen where I was at, but it was like the last lap, and I'm just like, all right, I'm curious. So that was a really bad mistake on my end, but ever since then, it has been hard to get to the front and just be confident in my abilities, but it's one of those things I'll tell newer drivers out there, like that first win, whenever it does come, and you do really earn it, like, I'm going to tell you guys right now, when I was racing that night, I was racing the best out of the truck series. And they were giving me all sorts of handfuls and all sorts of hard races. Like, when you get that win, it's like, wow, I raced clean. I didn't take anyone out. I was aggressive till the end. I got a little lucky, I'll have to admit that. But you know what? This was literally the best drivers, the best racers. That is the most satisfying feeling you can feel. It's just, there's nothing like it.
Absolutely amazing feeling, ain't it?
I miss it.
that race was crazy, because I remember I was up in the booth commentating for that race, and we couldn't even tell who won because people were blowing tires left and right in that race at the end, and we couldn't tell what was going on until after the results came in final, and they said, "Oh, Crusader won." I was like, "Well, how did that happen?" We were like looking all around trying to figure out how it even happened.
Yeah, and he came in the booth like he ran a marathon, man. He was beat out.
Y'all can go back and watch that on the channel. But yeah, I was beat out. My heart felt like it was gonna pop out of my chest, guys. Like that was insane. I still won't forget that day. Whew. Well, guys, that's definitely quite a bit of questions we've had tonight, and a lot of great memorable races and seasons talked about. Before we go, I just want to say thank you again to Pommel, Sparkalicious, Trav1871, Dirt GBX3, and Dr. Bobby for hopping on tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you guys about racing and talking about the leagues and all the struggles and all the hardships, but also the good times, the moments that make everything worth it. To just get away from life, get away from all the issues and all the crisis going on in your life or in the world. It really is like amazing to know what you guys go through and deal with, and satisfying at the same time to know that you're able to pull through and make people's lives better.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having us on. Don't forget to check out Ruthless Racing tonight, 8:30.
All right, I guess we'll have to check that out sometime. And just be
Real
aware.
quick too, I want to shout out WFO and Elite, man. White Light and P1, man. I love all them leagues, and man, maybe one day, man, we can get together and get all these leagues together and run a big marathon tournament race or something, man. Do something with all the league owners.
With some other leagues, and it really never turned out well because communication was bad, and then you had certain enemies against certain enemies that was in this league and this league, and it was like disaster.
All right.
Yeah, I think the problem is just leagues themselves. Like, unless you really know the drivers and you know how good they can run and what they drive.
In my league, see, we got a rule, 3 wide rule. If you make a 3 wide and if it causes a wreck, you dock points. And then you go in other leagues, they're 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 wide. And my drivers don't. Well, that rule we got, it really helps out with wrecks and stuff like that. You make a 3 wide with people that you can trust.
Mm-hmm. I think Las Vegas was a good showing of that too, and how good you guys were able to hold those lines and still race your lines and everything.
Yeah, Vegas was a fun race. That was one of the most competitive Xfinity races I've had in a long time. I mean, we were all, 16 cars under a blanket at one point?
Oh, it was 17.
That's wild, man.
17 cars. It was like under like a second and a half between the difference of all of them, from 1st to 17th.
It's crazy when you're in the booth and you're seeing that live. It's like, and Sparkalicious knows what I'm talking about. I about lost my voice that night.
I was out of breath before we got to the 3rd stage.
Hey, I got a quick question for y'all real quick. Do y'all do teams? Like, y'all have we have a group of us, like me, Manry, JDW, the Mick, it's Ken, Coop. We're a team, we racing all these leagues together. We call ourselves Bad Boy Motorsports. I was just curious if other leagues, if they have teams, your little cliques that team up like that.
We don't. We have tried it. You'll get certain people in certain teams, and they'll start getting their mouth going, and then they're trying to make people look down on the league. So we found that didn't work really well.
All right.
And you'll have certain people, I guess teams are certain people working together, but I don't know, it just goes through their head, I find, too much. So we just stopped it. I find the league runs good with, you pick your buddies, I guess, so you can call that a team, but we don't really have teams.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's how we approached it at Challenger, too. We started out with official teams, but we found a more casual approach was just better, like, okay, if you like driving with this guy and you want to be like an unofficial partner with this guy and you guys want to work together, I'm not going to stop you. But there's not really going to be any official benefit to being a team, and we're not really going to, call it that necessarily.
Yeah.
You still run your line.
Us, man. We got a page on Facebook and stuff, too. It's Bad Boy Motorsports. But there's, we run in 5 different leagues, and, there's 4 of us that run together all the time. So every league that we're all in, we're automatically a team. In my league, we actually have a team thing that we do a draft for the Xfinity series. As long as we do it in, and we have a sponsor who pays out a team championship. And even if us 4 are not on the same quote unquote team, we still represent Bad Boy Motorsports. We still help each other out behind the scenes of the league's team. But I don't know, that's just something we do. I was just curious if anybody else done anything like we do with Bad Boy or not. We have team shirts and everything. It's crazy. It's fun too, though. I don't know. It's different, so it makes it fun for us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We're thinking about incorporating that into our next season, but with our inaugural season hopping off, it just seemed to flow a little better to get the kinks worked out before adding that second perspective of team racing. And obviously you have your cliques out there, people are going to work with who they run best with. And so we do have those out there, and nothing against that, but we've been tossing around the idea of adding teams, just making sure there's none of that negative energy coming from, this team is better than that team. You're on a team, so just trying to weed out those that are going to bring that negativity to that racing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on, and I wish all of y'all nothing but the best in the future. I hope to do this again sometime.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, to everyone that tuned in tonight and has been commenting on the page itself of the live stream, I appreciate you guys again for tuning in. Again, if you enjoy what you see, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for PTM Racing. Be sure to go check out some other leagues as well for their YouTube videos if they're on for YouTube. And again, league owners, it was a pleasure to have you guys on with us tonight. For PTM, we are definitely going to be racing here in a couple weeks, so be ready for that. It'll be the road course challenges next. But on behalf of PTM, I am Crusader with my good friends Pottles, Dirt GBX, Dr. Robbie Bobby, Trav 1873, and Sparkalicious signing off. Have a good night, everyone, and again, happy Easter, everybody.